Have you ever felt that piercing pain when someone you care about ignores you? That emptiness in your stomach, that feeling of invisibility. You look in the mirror and ask yourself, what am I doing wrong? Today, we're going to explore together not just why this happens, but something much deeper. How to completely transform this situation using the wisdom of one of history's most influential psychologists, Carl Jung. Before we continue, if this is your first video on this channel, I invite you to subscribe and hit the notification bell. We're creating a community of people committed to personal growth, and your presence here matters. Think for a moment. That person who ignores you, who doesn't respond to your messages, who seems to be present but absent at the same time. Does that sound familiar? The silence from someone you love can feel like a more painful rejection than any hurtful word. Jung had a fascinating perspective on this, something few people understand, but that has the power to radically change your life. Jung taught us that every external relationship is, in reality, a reflection of our internal relationship. When we experience being ignored by someone, it activates a primal wound within us, one that possibly formed during our childhood. This wound lives in what Jung called the unconscious, that part of our mind that stores all our repressed memories, emotions, and experiences. Let me ask you, when was the last time you truly listened to yourself? Not to your noisy thoughts or your expectations about how things should be, but to that quiet voice that comes from the deepest part of your being. Jung called it the voice of the soul, and he believed that ignoring it was the main cause of our suffering. When someone ignores you, the first thing you do is seek external validation. You try harder, attempt to get their attention, change your behavior, look for ways to seem more interesting or attractive. But Jung would tell us, you're looking in the wrong direction. Real change begins when you stop looking outside and start looking within. One of Jung's most powerful contributions to psychology was his concept of individuation, the process of becoming a complete and integrated individual. According to him, each of us has a unique path to wholeness, and that path involves recognizing and accepting all parts of ourselves, even those we prefer to keep hidden. Imagine for a moment that the person who ignores you is in reality a messenger who brings to light a part of yourself that you've been ignoring for years. Jung would say it's no coincidence that you attract people who reflect your own relationship with yourself. If you allow others to ignore you, it's very likely that you're also ignoring crucial parts of your own being. This brings me to the first transformative revelation. When someone ignores you, it's not about them, it's about you and the opportunity to rediscover yourself. Sounds contradictory, right? But Jung was a master at recognizing the paradoxes of human life. Sometimes our greatest pain can become our greatest opportunity for growth. Think about all the times you've ignored your own needs, the times you've said yes when you wanted to say no, the moments you've silenced your intuition to please others. Every time you do this, you're sending a clear message to the universe and to the people around you. My needs aren't important. You can ignore me. Jung claimed that the unconscious always seeks balance. If you're experiencing being ignored in the outer world, it's a sign that you need to pay attention to something that's being ignored in your inner world. This is where true transformation begins. Now let's talk about something Jung called the shadow. This is the part of us that contains everything we've repressed, denied, or rejected. Our fears, insecurities, aggression, desires, everything that doesn't fit with the image we want to project to the world. When we don't recognize our shadow, we tend to project it onto others. So the person who ignores you might be activating aspects of your shadow that need to be integrated. Maybe it's your fear of abandonment, your feeling of not being enough, or even your own tendency to ignore your deepest needs. Here's the crucial point. As long as you keep looking for the solution in the other person, you'll remain trapped in the same pattern. True transformation happens when you decide to look at yourself with honesty and compassion, when you finally decide to listen to that inner voice you've been ignoring. Jung firmly believed in the power of symbols and dreams as bridges to our unconscious. I invite you to pay attention to your dreams during this period. What are they telling you? Does the person who ignores you appear in them? What feelings arise? These are valuable messages from your unconscious trying to communicate with you. Now, let's get practical. What can you do when someone ignores you? Based on Jung's teachings, here are concrete steps you can take to completely transform this situation. First, and this is fundamental, stop and breathe. When we feel ignored, our first reaction is usually panic. Our primitive brain interprets it as a threat to our social survival. But before sending another message or calling again, breathe deeply and connect with your body. Jung believed that wisdom resides not only in our mind, but also in our physical sensations. Second, ask yourself, in what ways am I ignoring myself? Be brutally honest. Perhaps you've been postponing an important project that resonates with your soul. Maybe you've been silencing that voice, telling you that you deserve more. Or perhaps you've been ignoring signs that this relationship isn't aligned with your true self. Third, and this is revolutionary, instead of chasing the person who ignores you, start nurturing the relationship with yourself. Jung talked about the importance of cultivating what he called the anima in men and the animus in women. These are the complementary energies we all carry within. When you integrate these energies, you become more complete, less dependent on external validation. How do you do this in practice? Dedicate time to activities that nourish your soul. It could be art, writing, meditation, walks in nature, anything that makes you feel connected to yourself. Jung was a great advocate of creativity as a way to access the unconscious. Fourth, examine your relationship patterns. Jung observed that we tend to repeat certain patterns over and over until we consciously recognize them. Is this the first time you felt ignored in a relationship? Probably not. What do these situations have in common? What part of you is seeking to heal through these repetitive experiences? Fifth, and this is where the magic really begins. Consciously decide to choose yourself, even if that means moving away from the person who ignores you. This isn't an act of revenge or manipulation. It's a profound act of self-love. Jung believed that only when we truly value ourselves can we engage in authentic and healthy relationships with others. When you begin to choose yourself, something extraordinary happens. Your energy changes. You're no longer coming from a place of lack or desperation, but from a place of fullness, and this energy is magnetic. Now, I want to clarify something important. This doesn't mean you should immediately end the relationship with the person who ignores you. What it means is that you need to shift your focus from trying to change them to nurturing and honoring yourself. Jung spoke extensively about what he called synchronicity, seemingly coincidental but meaningful events that occur when we're aligned with our authentic self. When you begin to listen to yourself, honor your needs, and live from your truth, the outer world starts to respond in surprising ways. Many people who have followed this path report something amazing. Not only does their emotional well-being improve, but often the dynamic with the person who ignored them completely changes. Sometimes that person begins to show more interest. Other times new people appear who are more aligned with their true self. But here's the secret. This only works when you do it for yourself, not as a strategy to manipulate the other person. Jung was very clear about this. Any attempt at manipulation only reinforces the disconnection from your true self. Now, let's talk about fear. It's natural to feel afraid when we consider choosing our well-being over chasing someone who ignores us. Questions arise like, what if I end up alone? What if I never find someone else? What if this is my last chance at love? Jung would say these fears come from what he called the complex, a set of charged ideas and emotions that distort our perception. These complexes often form in childhood and can have enormous power over our decisions if we don't consciously recognize them. To overcome these fears, Jung recommended a process he called active confrontation with the unconscious. This involves dialoguing with your fears instead of being controlled by them. Ask yourself, where does this fear come from? Is it really true that I'll be alone forever if I let go of this relationship? What evidence do I have of that? When you examine your fears with compassion and curiosity, they begin to lose their power over you. And when you act despite the fear, following the direction of your authentic self, you discover an inner strength you never knew you had. It's important to understand that this process doesn't happen overnight. Jung saw personal development as a lifelong journey. There will be days when you feel strong and confident, and others when old patterns will try to return. What's crucial is maintaining your commitment to yourself, even when it's difficult. Now, let me tell you something Jung discovered that few people understand. When someone ignores you, they're often activating what he called a projection. This means that, unconsciously, you're projecting aspects of your psyche onto that person, and that dynamic of being ignored is reflecting something important about your relationship with yourself. For example, if you had a father or mother who was emotionally distant or unresponsive to your needs, you may have internalized the belief that you don't deserve attention. This belief operates from your unconscious, influencing your choice of partners and how you behave in relationships. Jung believed these projections are opportunities for growth. Every time you experience an intense emotional reaction towards someone, especially a negative one, it's a sign that there's something important to explore within yourself. A powerful technique Jung recommended was what he called active imagination, a conscious dialogue with the different parts of your psyche. I invite you to try this. Imagine you can have a conversation with the part of you that feels ignored. What does it need? What does it have to tell you? Listen with compassion and openness. As you begin to nurture this internal relationship, something remarkable happens in your external relationships. You no longer need others to fill your emotional voids because you're learning to meet your own emotional needs. This gives you enormous freedom and power in your relationships. Jung observed that many people enter relationships looking for someone to complete what they lack. He called this the search for the soulmate, the idea that there's someone out there who will make us feel complete. But this external search often distracts us from the real task, finding wholeness within ourselves. When you commit to choosing yourself, to listening to your inner voice and honoring your needs, you begin to attract relationships that reflect this new level of self-respect. People who used to ignore you may start treating you differently, or you may realize they no longer resonate with your new energy. And here's one of Jung's most profound teachings. Sometimes, the people who hurt us the most are our greatest teachers. The person who ignores you might be, without knowing it, catalyzing your process of individuation, your journey towards becoming who you truly are. Every time you choose not to chase external validation and instead nourish yourself, you're strengthening what Jung called the self, the organizing center of your psyche, your true essence. This connection to yourself is what generates a sense of purpose and meaning in your life. But Jung also warned us about the dangers of what he called inflation, when we identify too much with our ego and lose connection with something greater than ourselves. That's why it's important to maintain a balance, honoring yourself without falling into narcissism or isolation. One way to maintain this balance is through community. Jung greatly valued the role of community in personal development. I encourage you to find people who support you on this journey, people who respect your process and celebrate your growth. This channel and this community can be part of that support. As you progress on this path of self-discovery, you'll start to notice subtle but profound changes in your life. You might begin to have more vivid or meaningful dreams. Perhaps you'll notice synchronicities, meaningful coincidences that seem to guide you. Or maybe you'll simply feel greater inner peace, regardless of what happens in your external relationships. Jung believed these signs indicate that you're aligning with what he called the process of individuation, your unique path to wholeness. This path isn't always easy. It involves facing parts of yourself that may be uncomfortable or painful. But the reward is a life lived with authenticity and purpose. Now let me share with you a practical exercise based on Jung's teachings. The next time you feel ignored by someone and feel that familiar urge to chase their attention, stop and ask yourself, what part of me needs attention right now? What need am I trying to satisfy through this person? How can I give myself what I'm seeking from them? Then, dedicate time to address that need yourself. If you're seeking validation, ask yourself how you can validate yourself. If you're seeking connection, explore ways to connect more deeply with yourself through meditation, writing, or any practice that resonates with you. Jung insisted that each person must find their own path. There are no magic formulas or instant solutions. What works for one person may not work for another. The key is authenticity, finding the practices and approaches that truly resonate with you. As you continue on this journey, remember to be patient and compassionate with yourself. Deep transformation takes time. There will be moments of clarity and progress, and also moments of confusion and setbacks. Jung saw this as a natural part of the growth process, like the seasons in nature. One last thing I'd like to share with you, something Jung understood deeply. The true power of transformation doesn't come from changing others, but from changing our relationship with ourselves. When we do this, everything else begins to change around us. Not because we've manipulated the external world, but because we've transformed our inner world. So if you're dealing with someone who ignores you, remember, this doesn't define your worth. It's an invitation to a deeper journey of self-discovery and growth. It's an opportunity to choose yourself, perhaps for the first time in your life. And who knows, maybe when you least expect it, when you're no longer tied to the outcome. When you've found peace within yourself, that person who ignored you might begin to see the radiant being you've become. Or perhaps you'll have grown so much that it won't matter anymore, because you'll have discovered a deeper and truer love, the love for yourself. Before ending this video, I want to ask you something important. If this message has resonated with you, if you've found value in these words, share this video with someone you think might benefit from hearing it. Sometimes, a simple video shared at the right moment can be the catalyst for a profound transformation in someone's life. And if you've identified with what we've explored today, let me know in the comments about your experience. Have you been ignored by someone important to you? What did you discover about yourself in that process? Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear to feel less alone on their own journey. Remember that we're in this together, creating a community of people committed to their personal growth and to living more authentic and fulfilling lives. Your presence here matters, your voice matters, and your journey matters. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, do it right now and activate the notification bell so you don't miss future videos like this one. Each week we explore deep topics that can transform your life from the inside out. Thank you for being here, for your attention, and for your willingness to grow. Remember Jung's words, the most important task in a person's life is to give birth to oneself. You are in that process right now, and it's the most important journey you will ever undertake. See you in the next video. And remember, when you finally choose yourself, everything changes.